Welcome to the Wiretapped Truths. This is Jesse Perez. This is so for those of you guys that don't know yet, we're watching a Wire episodes recap. We brought you episodes 1 and 2, Jesse, Leland, and Jack, and basically we just recap the episode and put in our thoughts in it, and maybe give you some stuff that you might have missed. Um, while doing this, I posted in the Facebook group, and we got a hit that somebody said you need some girl energy in there. So I was like, all right, do you want to bring us some girl energy for episode 3 recap? And she was like, yeah, I'm down. So this will be our first guest co-host. We appreciate her coming on. This is Lynn. Lynn, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Lynn Collins, a longtime super fan of The Wire. I don't know what else I'm supposed to talk about. My my favorite characters are mostly the police. I'm a law and order type chick,
Okay.
but so I like those guys. I like what they do. But I really can't pinpoint this one character. I like everybody. I don't have a favorite season. I like all of them, and let's go.
How many
You know,
times have you watched it, Lynn?
How many times have I watched it?
Yeah, like all the
Oh,
way through.
innumerable times. I'm since 2000 and what 3 or whatever year it came out. I've watched it like a million times.
so
Nice.
it's funny that you said you're a law and order person. I kind of feel the same way too. I side more with the police, but it's funny because that's the great thing about the show, that it gives us that gray area, and sometimes we do side with the Barksdale crew or whatnot. So like or we at least see where they're coming from, and they have so that I think that's the genius of the show. Um, all right, Leland and Jack, you guys want to introduce yourselves real quick, and then
Sure,
we'll get started.
sure. My name is Leland Edmond, a co-host here on Wiretapped Truths. I'm glad to bring you all episode 3. We just released episode 2 last night, and we are looking for this episode to be up on a few different platforms. And we got some inquiries about anything else other than YouTube. So we're definitely we're working on putting them on some other platforms. So anybody that's inquired about if we're on any other platforms, we'll definitely put those links out as soon as we get them. As soon as it's up on a Spotify or an Apple Music or another platform, we'll definitely put those links out for you. So glad to be here. Third time around, everybody, we appreciating all the feedback, all the love, all the comments, and we appreciate people for tuning in and just giving feedback. So thank you all.
My name is Jack Simmons. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for tuning in again. I'm really excited with what we've done with the past 2 episodes. Excuse me. Uh, Huge Wire super fan, as you guys all know. This is the greatest Wire podcast of all time. I'll say it. So thank you to Lynn for joining us. And yeah, let's do it, man. Season 1, episode 3, The Buys. So
What's the opening quote?
so the opening quote is, sorry, I have it right here. It's in my notes. Okay. Give me 1 second. So, okay. The opening quote, is "The King Stay the King"
I
by
love it.
D'Angelo Barksdale. And we'll get into that. It's one of the most iconic scenes when D'Angelo explains chess to Bodie, Poot, and Wallace. Um, or rather Bodie and Wallace,
Yep.
kind of one of the greatest metaphors in film and television history.
For sure.
Ever.
Amazing. Before we get into that, though, let's start off the first scene. The first scene is D'Angelo sitting on a post where Bodie, Wallace, and Poot are in the projects. Now, another great visual metaphor, D'Angelo towering above them, showing his superiority. A drug dealer comes up to D'Angelo and asks them if they have caps. D'Angelo kindly and patiently tells them, we'll get them later, where Bodie just berates him and tells him to get the fuck out of here. And D'Angelo says, like, what's your problem? Why are you talking to them? And I think it's great because it shows the hypocrisy in the drug dealers, how they look down upon these people as addicts. They dehumanize them. They don't think of them as people worthy of dignity, or respect, or consideration at all, even though they're the ones providing them with the addiction. They're the reason they have that addiction to begin with. And D'Angelo reminds them that, this is the only trade where you can just berate the customers and violence occurs, and all this mayhem occurs, and shows that it's a unique form of business in that sense. And it also shows how McNulty and Bunk really got through to him in the previous episode.
Yeah, I like the scene a lot. Like you said, I think it kind of shows D'Angelo's leadership skills a little bit here when he's talking about customer service to them. You know, and he's a freaking drug fiend. Well, you're a freaking drug dealer. Um, I like D'Angelo in this scene, and like you said, the McNulty's words sink in. Yep.
And you know what, too, Jay? It's something I guess I never put together as me, and I've seen this show, like I tell y'all every episode, 1 billion times. Okay. He is like humbled after that interaction with McNulty and Bunk. Like he's like, now wait a minute. Now you've been dealing drugs for years. Okay. Like you just got off from murder. It's like this hypocrisy that he has with the drug game, but you just want on trial for murder. Like they really have him as this hypocrite almost to like what the drug game is in a way. And Poot, this is one of my favorite lines. Poot tells him, well, it can't be like that because they dope fiends. They don't have much leeway. They don't have, it has to be like this because they addicted to drugs. So I thought that's just a telling line to kind of compartmentalize both parties. It's like, well, they got to be treated different. They're addicted to drugs.
Yeah.
Let's not act like these are normal people, I guess is what Poot was saying.
I mean, I think that Z, he's just conflicted. He kind of came up into the game by being in the family, the Barksdale family, and I think he felt that he didn't have any other options but to continue being in the game. Like he could have gone to college, he could have got a trade, but he just continued in the family business, so to speak, without kind of evaluating what that meant. And I think once he had that interaction with Bunk and McNulty when they brought him in last episode, it kind of made him think like, wow, we're killing the community, and we're treating them like shit, at the same time, and this is how we make our money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Lynn's right on the money too, because it's like he is conflicted, and it's like he makes irrational decisions, right? But it's that irrationality that kind of makes him human, because he's a young person. It's like everybody makes dumb decisions when they're young. Everybody doesn't follow. Everyone's easily manipulated when they're young. That's why, like beforehand, last episode, we brought up how D'Angelo is the perfect person for for McNulty and Bunk to interrogate, because they realize he's only about in his early 20s. He's the one they're going to be able to get under and really cause that shift in mentality. And that's what shows him as a really fascinating character, because kind of like Daniels, he's caught in between these two worlds,
Yeah.
right? He has to show respect to his bosses, but he really shows that it's this like barbaric way that we treat these people that are addicts because of these people, because of the dealers. And the way the addicts get treated throughout that episode is kind of a recurring theme, because we get into Stringer's speech later, and it just shows like how our power shifts downhill. In other words, the ones in charge kind of berate the ones lower than them, and shit rolls downhill, right? As Carver said. And so that was interesting to me, is just showing like this power dynamic that Bodhi has, because they have all the power. The dealers can't go to someone else.
Yeah. All right. Next. Next scene.
Yes, sir. So the next scene picks up after the opening quote, and it's in Barella's office, and they discuss the previous episode's incident where Presbo pistol whips the kid. And basically figure out, okay, what are we gonna do with Herc and Carver and Prez Belusky, and it's the first time we see Valchek, the scumbag major, and we realize like Valchek basically says to Daniels like, listen, if you help him get through internal affairs or IID
ID.
IED or
ID.
IID. Okay. Uh, basically, I'll provide you with anything you need. That's kind of exchange of favors, and everyone's avoiding accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Like Daniels even says, "Hey, he blinded a kid in one eye," and that
Yep.
guy Forster's like, "Well, three of ours were injured." It's like they were adults. What are you, fully grown adults who started the incident too? They completely started the incident. Um,
I like that they don't shy away from the cops just being complete hypocrites here, and
Mm-hmm.
blinding a 15-year-old and then saying, well, ours got injured,
Yeah.
it's
And Valchek said, I think our stance has to be we did nothing wrong, and Daniel's like, well, 14-year-old is blind. Let's not act like that part didn't happen. And like we touched on that last episode about him telling Daniels, thank you for walking Prez through this grand jury thing. Like
yeah.
it really makes me think like, okay, it wasn't just from episode 2 when he says, get your story straight with ID. It makes me seem like, okay, he really is walking him through what to say through the whole process, not just telling him what to say when they initially questioned him about what happened. Like he's really, for Valchek to say that, it made me think like, okay, he's walking him through the whole process. Daniels is to keep him on a straight and narrow when it's time for the grand jury stuff to come about. So
yeah, and also Burrell. There's a note where Burrell goes through the um, the guy who is Colcock. He's like, he has a rap sheet that's really long. He was getting drugs and assault, as if any of that had anything to do with him getting pistol whipped. Like the way
right.
they talk about it is so kind of cold and it's just like they don't care they don't even pretend to care at all about him, about the fact that he pistol whipped a 14-year-old kid. um and I think that shows that Daniels is like conflicted too. That's what makes him a compelling character too. I gain a lot of sympathy for him in this episode because he's like a middleman, and no matter what he does, he just pisses everyone off, whether
Yep.
it's the people below him or the people above him. He can't win, really.
Yep. Nope. It's a losing battle. He's fighting a losing battle all of season 1,
Yeah.
with this case.
That's why his wife says in the previous episode, like, if you don't, what's the line? Like, you
You can't
can't lose.
lose if you don't play.
Can't lose if
Yeah,
you
she's really the smartest one in that, because she's basically saying like that's the only thing that you're gonna come, because if you try too hard, you're not gonna get promoted. You'll annoy your bosses, but if you don't do anything, you'll show basically the cops that work for you that you're just basically a fraud who doesn't
Yep.
care about the cases at all.
Yep.
So what's after that?
So then that scene continues with Daniels and Burrell talking, and Daniels is basically saying like, we're not going to be able to get much done with the resources you provided. And
Yep.
Burrell's like, don't worry about it. As long as you just give like a couple of weeks of good police work, get some dope. That's it. And
And you know what? Pause right there. I
Hmm?
remember last week we were asking about the article in the paper, right? Why the crew never addressed it, why the show never addressed it. I rewatched episode 3 like 4 times to get ready for this episode, just to be super thorough. He tells Burrell, since it's been in the paper, this case might not be as easy as you think. So remember last week we were asking why didn't the Barksdale crew acknowledge it or anything like that, or why didn't the show touch on it? That was them touching on it. That little line right there was them acknowledging, like, well, it's been the crew in the paper. The crew might be aware of that. We're onto them now. That was Daniels telling him, like, I might need some more resources because of what's happening. And that was the only time it was kind of touched on. So I wanted to let y'all know I caught that from, we were questioning it last week, like, why didn't the show touch on it? That was the only touch, was when he said that to Burrell. So
Yeah, good follow up, and from that, and also like you could almost look at it as a visual metaphor, right? Burrell closes the elevator door on him, just basically saying like, we're not going to provide you with much. Like, I'm watching you, but at the same time, I'm not really going to help you
Yeah.
at all. So then the next scene is one of the best scenes of the episode because it's the first time we see Rawls and Bunk in front of the press, and it's great because they look so awkward and uncomfortable when they're discussing this. They're talking about Gant being murdered, and they're basically saying there's no way he was involved. This was because of he was a witness in a case. And just like Forster in the previous and Burrell in the previous scene, they're avoiding any kind of accountability. They're just passing the buck down, saying it's not our problem, it's not our fault. That's the common theme throughout the police department, right? It's just avoiding responsibility. That's why they all hate McNulty, because he's the only one who's like actually going to hold them to the fire and say, no, it is your fault. It's your responsibility to do this. Um, so then we get a scene within a scene because we see them talking to the cameras, and then we pan out and realize they're on a television that's being watched by McNulty and Greg's. Neat little camera work. And McNulty is like, shame on you, Bunk, which shows his like, he's like teasing him, because he's his friend. But in a way, it reveals, what McNulty hates the bureaucracy and the politics of this whole organization. And Greg's like, what would you do? He's like, I would just declare that a witness is murdered, and that we should all rise up. He realizes the whole system is completely broken.
Yeah, this is why McNulty is like my favorite. Is the rise against the machine, and wants to he wants to get the job done by any means necessary, right? Like I think the show hits us over the head with, especially with season one, that McNulty's natural police. He cares about the job. He's one of the smartest in the room. So yeah, kind of like McNulty's whole stance here.
Yeah, and it also, this was an episode really about McNulty and Greg's bonding. This was like their friendship episode, in my opinion, because they spend most of the episode together talking, and they gain great sympathy for each other. They realize that they're both police that actually want to do the job. Um, and he looks down upon people like Rawls, and then Greg's figures that out too. That like, hey, it's because of these people that we're not able to get the job done.
Mm-hmm. What do we have after that?
So then we have Greg's is basically saying like, we don't have any information on this guy Avon. We can't find a picture of him at all. He's basically like a ghost. He's so good at what he does that he's able to be invisible. And so he's like, well, why don't we try to find something else? And this is one of the best scenes in the whole episode too, because he talks to those two annoying asshole cops that are just sitting there reading the newspaper, eating ring dings, not doing their jobs, the two old alcoholics. And he's like, why don't you guys go down? They're so condescending. He's like, hey, we can't find a photo of him anywhere. And they're like, well, I guess you're fucked then. Like, they don't care. They don't even pretend to really care about their job. And he basically is like, well, I'm not going to take that. You guys are working with me. I'm not going to do everything here. So why don't you guys go down to the housing department and get a photo? And they're like, no, why don't you do it? He's like, well, I have all this other work, the more important work to do. But if you want to trade me with me, and he's basically showing power. He's like, I'm not going to stand for this bullshit.
Yep. He said, and it's one of the funniest scenes too. She says, Greg says to him, "That was inspiring." He said, "Well, I'm a leader of men."
Yeah.
I absolutely love that scene because it does show Greg's and McNulty like really starting to grow a bond. Like, and I got to thinking too yesterday when I was rewatching again, just one more final time, like all the way up until the end of season 5, like other than season 4, Greg's and McNulty are like, they're partners. Like they're pretty much like conjoined at the hip through the whole show almost, in a way, kind of thing. Like that's his partner kind of thing. Like,
Yeah, because Bunk is even more jaded than them, whereas Greggs and McNulty are like natural police. So
Yeah, and I also love the fact that it's kind of like go ahead and no, we're having technical difficulties with Lynn. See if we could get her back on. I love the fact that it's acknowledged that Avon's a ghost, right?
mhm.
Like there's no go to the DMV. How do we not have a photo of this guy? How's this guy a drug kingpin and we don't have a picture of him? And I think it gets explained a little later on too. Well, not explained, but Avon doesn't have a driver's license, right? Avon's not going to the DMV. Avon's not going to go get his government ID. Avon's not going to go collect Social Security, right? Avon's out of the system, and he knows to stay out of the system.
Mhm.
He, he Orlando's the front man for the business. Like Avon's a ghost. If it wasn't for Jimmy McNulty pretty much having his ear to the streets on West Baltimore, we don't know Avon Barksdale exists.
Right.
So,
That's why he was so angry at D'Angelo in the first episode, because he's like, "You're bringing
exactly,
attention to us.
exactly.
We're trying to stay completely under the radar, and this is the first court case that people are actually aware of our organization." And there's actually a great line too with McNulty talking to those two older cops, where one of them says, "Well, I guess you're fucked." And if you notice, Santan, like the blocking of the actors, the movement of the actors is so great, even when they're not speaking. Because when he says that, Santangelo turns around
He
and gives that
laughing.
look like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Like even
Yeah.
Santangelo, who doesn't really care about that, is like, "Dude, like show some sort of respect or dignity."
Mhm.
And it's like that's what's really great about this show is that yeah, the actors are so into their characters that even when they don't have lines, they know exactly what to do in terms of their movements and their
Yeah,
facial expressions. Um,
for sure.
and Yeah, so he basically just forces those guys to do that to move. And like you said with Avon, not having any attention on him, that's the whole theme of the show is surveillance, right? They're wire, and the reason that he's able to stay completely under the radar is because he's not being watched, which might not occur today because everyone's on the internet and everybody's, every I wonder how that would work in 2025 because nowadays we have a profile on everyone
Oh
everywhere.
yeah, this show's so dated. It shows a few times actually. It comes up a few times.
Yeah.
It's boom.
Yeah. What's going on, Lynn? You had a little difficulty there?
I had some technical difficulties, but I'm
I got
back.
it right. I got it right. We're good.
Gotcha. All
Yeah,
right.
I think that you guys were talking about the fact that the Barksdales were pretty much unknown to the police, except McNulty, who was always doing his own thing. Um, I think one part of that we Omar had him on his radar. He was probably watching them before the cops were,
Yeah,
so he could set them up.
yeah,
Omar
Yeah,
had
that's
way better surveillance than the Baltimore police.
yeah, yeah. That's true.
that's a great point. And we were talking last week about how like Bubs is better at policing
Oh,
than a lot of his
absolutely,
other with the
But
hat trick.
absolutely.
Bubbles is the heart of the show, man.
Yeah. And he really McNulty respects Bubs and Omar because he doesn't care about badge or title. He cares about like their job efficiency, really.
Right.
Um, so the next scene we come into play with the chess metaphor.
Love this.
Uh, love this scene. Um, it's funny because when I watched this show for the first time, I started actually really getting into chess. I don't know what happened first, if it was, but I was like, wait a second, um, and yeah, it shows Wallace and Bodhi's innocence, right? Because chess is a more nuanced, mature game, but they're kids. They're playing
Yeah.
checkers. It's more of a kid's game. D'Angelo is a little more advanced. He's a little older, so he's teaching them. He's not even being like really like talking down to them. He's just realized like, wow, you guys don't know chess at all, and he explains to them, and it's a great metaphor for the show, and it throughout the entire series, we'll keep coming back to it because it comes into play. Uh,
And Jack, I just wanna touch on that little what you said, those little metaphors about the show. Like that was such a great breakdown in terms of how the characters move. You know, Barksdale, he doesn't have to do much, actually. They have such a good organization. I really don't have to do too much, you know. And Stringer, he does everything, like kind of thing. Like he deals with the money when the money comes in, how the money goes out, what legitimate businesses we're structuring, what assets we have in our name, you know, like he is the one, like he said, for the queen to go get shit done piece, you know. And when they compare, you know, the pawns and they call, you know, they say Bodhi like I'm smart ass pawn. He also beat the wiretap by claiming entrapment in season 3. Like Bodhi was really smart. Like that little nugget about him being a smart pawn, even in episode 2, I mean season 2, when they're questioning him about the shootout with the kid, and the cop is like, "Yeah, we got your prints on the gun," and Bodhi's like, "Which one?" Because I wiped it down myself. So which one do you think is my gun? Because I know they're clean. And he had the cop in a corner. Like he was really intelligent, like in terms of his instincts and stuff like that. And also it foreshadowed about the weak product too. Like the weak product goes, it seems like every season it's about, you know, how strong the product is in the towers, you know, and the first season it's completely trash. You know, even some of the second season. You know, and he mentioned it to him like, man, this weak ass product, we got to get these fiends agitated, man. They're not, you know, we're not putting out a good product.
So I love this scene, right? And you know, this is why initially I said D was one of my favorite characters, is because scenes like this that really stuck out to me. Now doing this rewatch, I'm second guessing my my D'Angelo pick as one of my favorite, and it's not D'Angelo, it's the way he's written, you know. We've talked about that, you know. Me and Leland kind of agree more on that situation than you, Jack. But this scene right here is kind of like the breakdown of the game right here. Is you know, I mean, I just love the whole fact that he's just that Bodhi and Wallace are moving like this with chess pieces like they're, and he's like wait a minute, are you playing checkers on a chessboard, like and with me, I know how to play chess. I'm not good at chess. I know how to play. I know how the things move enough where I could follow along with what's being said. And like it's been said here, and I'll say it again, the metaphors are awesome, just like one of the best in television. And it's also because I think because we've seen it so many times, we kind of forget too. This is the show is still introducing them to us, so in a way it's using chess to tell the viewer this is what happens. And probably my favorite opening quote, the king stay the king. You know, he's like, nah, don't work like that. The king stay the king. Yeah. Avon stay Avon. You know, and you know, Stringer's the queen. You get things done. The stash house, you move. The stash house is the castle. And again, the mentality of Bodhi in the scene, the pawn, and the difference between Bodhi's mentality and D'Angelo's, where pawns get kept off quick. Like, yo, like we're gonna die, and Bodhi, no, we're not gonna die. We're gonna make it to the end. You know, he's unless you're a smart ass pawn, then we make it to the end.
And he does, like even all the way up into season 4. Like every season he does something to kind of make you think like, okay, he's really intelligent. Like season 2, you know, like I said, with the interrogation, he was able to beat that. And then in season 4, he started with a pretty bad corner, and he was able to build that up, you know. So it just shows like he's really locked in. He's really intuitive. Like he's got good instincts. You know, he's one of my favorite characters. I didn't list him when we listed our top characters, but I love Bodhi's character. Like he's one of my favorite characters, even from season 1. You know, just him being 15 and just being able to be who he was. Like Bodhi's one of my favorite characters. I was telling Jack, Jesse, I love Bodhi. Like he's one of my favorite characters in the show for sure.
Oh yeah, even when the way he says that line, the scene ends with him just saying, "Unless you're some smart ass pawn," you can tell he's determined. That like
Mm-hmm.
sets up his whole character. He's just like that motivates him because it's true in chess. If the pawn makes it across the board, he becomes the king. Um, and what is interesting too is how Stringer is the queen because going with the chess metaphor, the queen does move all across the board. The queen is the king's the most important piece, but the queen is the most powerful piece.
Yep.
She can do the most damage, and in a way, Stringer does move a lot more throughout the show. He gets involved in real estate. He does a lot more business deals than Avon, um, and so you're right. Yeah, like he really does. He in a way, I always felt like Stringer was more of a powerful character than Avon. And you're right on the money. Yeah, Avon. The powerful pieces don't have to move that much. It's like that quote in Goodfellas, right? Paulie didn't move a lot because he didn't have to move for anybody. And
Yep.
it's the same thing with Avon. It's like he knows what he has to do. And the real chess match, if you want, will be the Barksdale versus the Stanfield crew, and eventually they capture the king, just like in chess to sorry to for the Stanfield crew to now become the king. So yeah, just like an absolutely incredible scene. And it also just shows like D'Angelo's wisdom, right? He's young and stupid and irrational, but in a way he also is wise because he grew up with his uncle being this drug kingpin. So he knows a lot more than like other people would because of his family connections.
Mm-hmm. All right, Jay, where we go from there?
Yes, sir. So uh the next scene is the first time we see Sidner. He goes into Greg's and McNulty and shows them this really, really old tape disc that they have. He even like blows dust off of it, and it's kind of hilarious, like props. And they're like, "Are you kidding me right now? This is what we have." And before that, I just want to touch on Sidner as a character because we didn't really discuss him in the last episode. For me, what's cool, he's always been like the cool, competent one. Like he reminds me of like Mike in Breaking Bad, where he's like he doesn't say a lot, but he's just like very competent in his job, which makes him unique in a
Mm-hmm.
police department filled with like complete fuck ups.
Yeah.
He's the guy that you can rely on, who just knows what to do, and that's
Yep.
why this is the first episode where we actually see him
Well, the
doing.
interesting thing about Sidner is that he becomes the new McNulty, right?
At
Like
the
Mhm.
end. Yep.
when the
Yep.
when the when the series ends, and that's why when people say how the series end, and then I'll put it out there again this episode, guys. We're a spoiler show. Where if it comes up in conversation, we are going to mention future spoilers.
Yeah.
So you
Don't
have
yell at us if you're like, "Oh, you spoiled." We're telling you right away.
um so when people kind of, and I just want to make this comment real quick because people kind of leave with the idea that Marlowe won at the end,
Mm-hmm.
where it's a cycle. So Marlowe can't leave the game, right? He's gonna come back in the game, and Sidner's gonna open the case, and then we're gonna get season one over with just Marlowe. So
Mm-hmm.
Sidner's gonna be the one to catch Marlowe. Like I think that's what the show really leaves us off with.
Oh, interesting. I've never thought about because I know that David Simon and the cast pretty much have said like, yeah, we're never gonna do any like any reboots or any spinoffs or like they pretty much shut it down. So like I haven't really thought about like, what
I
would make
think
a good spinoff? Like how would the pieces that we have left? And you're right, it does kind of spin around to okay, yeah,
yeah.
he is the new McNulty, and he would be chasing Marlowe. If there was a season 6, he'd probably be chasing Marlowe because Marlowe's getting back in the game. Like I never thought about it from that
Yeah.
perspective. Like,
Everything repeats itself. That's kind of
Yeah.
the theme, It's just
yeah,
like nothing really changes that much at the end of the day. Characters kind of become other characters. It's just like it's a cycle because
yeah,
that's how the system needs to stay in place.
yeah. And I
Um,
always put together the McNulty like, okay, this is the new McNulty, but I never thought about it like, well, if we had a season 6, if he's sitting there going after, he talks to the judge, and I don't know if it's the same crew. I don't think it's the Marlowe crew. He said we tied some murders to this crew. I don't think it was the Marlowe crew. I think he was chasing someone else. But it's just I never thought about that's maybe Sidner versus Marlowe if there was a season 6. Like I never even thought about it from that perspective kind of thing. Like, that's interesting.
By the way, StreamYard got Lynn got by StreamYard.
Yeah, I heard. She was reaching out. Yes.
So she's gonna she's gonna join us on a future episode, or maybe we'll do an interview with her separately. We'll make it up to her though. But thanks Lynn for coming on and your contributions.
Thank you, Lynn. Sorry, technical difficulties.
Yeah. So we lost our first character of the podcast.
That's true.
How do you guys want to carry it? Do you guys want to have a morning or
at the bar?
Yeah, we'll have one of those. Pour one out for Lynn. Right?
Pour one out for Lynn, man.
The Irish.
She was thorough. I'm glad she came on. Like it was good to hear. Just a different perspective than our 3.
She was good. Yeah, she was good, man.
So we'll see about maybe we could do some test runs with 4 people, but and not record it or something. I don't know. Try to see does it start to act funny after when it's more than 3 people? Because we never had any technical difficulties. So maybe having a 4th person is when it starts to get a little funky with StreamYard. I don't know. We'll have to see. I'll do some research on it this weekend.
Go ahead, Jack.
Okay, sure. So, picking up where we left off, Santangelo is in Rawls' office and is like, what am I doing here? He says, I'm a 5th wheel on a cart that's going nowhere. Beautiful writing, right? Mm-hmm. And Rawls just says, you need to be there to keep an eye on McNulty. And if you do that, you come back with a favor in his pocket. Kind of like earlier, Valchek and Daniels, right? Mm-hmm. It's the exchange of favors that's kind of a common theme throughout. And it's not altruistic. It's not out of the goodness of his own heart. Valchek wasn't doing that to Daniels because he genuinely appreciated it. He was doing that so he could save his son-in-law. And he doesn't really care about his son-in-law. He just knows that if his son-in-law gets in trouble, then it's going to come back on him. They have to keep the system running.
And we can also see with Rawls and Sandy just how dirty Rawls really is. We kind of get to see hey, look, I'm willing to, put some people out there to watch you to try to get this cop messed up that I don't like. I'm willing to, essentially put a snitch into this detail so that I can, get McNulty hemmed up. It just shows Rawls is he don't play by the books too much himself.
Mm-hmm.
He hates McNulty. He hates McNulty. He absolutely hates him.
You know what's funny? He does hate McNulty, but I think he's just McNulty's more of a pain in his ass. I get the feeling Daniels doesn't like McNulty, and that's
for sure. No, for sure.
But I mean, even more than Rawls. I feel
it's so funny you say that, Jesse. So 2 scenes that stick out to me about that really quick. Y'all remember in season 2 when McNulty put all the bodies on the homicide department and he walks in the homicide and walks past Rawls and he's like, Colonel? And and Rawls is just looking at him disgusted. That's one scene. Okay, they hate each other. In season 5, when the serial killer stuff comes up and they're in the office, they're in that box, and McNulty and Rawls and Daniels know what happens. Mm-hmm. The look that Daniels gives him there and in the elevator when he gets on, and it's I can't believe what you done. That look, it looks through McNulty's soul. He definitely hates McNulty. He just feels like he's snaky. Some of the stuff he is. McNulty he's a great protagonist, but I understand why people wouldn't like him. But I love McNulty. He's unapologetically himself.
He brings on unnecessary work. So if you're just somebody that wants to put in the 9 to 5, it's kind of I see why you hate McNulty.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I definitely get it. That's why it's he's not even really McNulty's right, but Rawls from his perspective is right in hating him because it's the thing is they can't put any they don't want there to be it to be known that witnesses are being killed, right? Because then it's anarchy. Because then people realize that there is no protection. It's
Yeah.
like this very fragile house of cards that they have to put up to be like, we're doing good work as policemen, and we need to show that we're competent. We can catch these drug dealers. Because in reality, they can't. But they
Right.
can't let people know that, because then the whole entire thing falls apart. So McNulty is constantly like pushing that away. Like he's constantly trying to destroy that. And Rawls is basically saying, like, I need you to keep an eye on him to make sure he doesn't fuck up everything.
Yeah.
And especially later on in this episode, you're right with Daniels, like McNulty completely shows him up and his insubordinates. Um and yeah, that's great. But yeah, so the Rawls kind of like basically tells Santangelo, like, hey, you need to keep an eye on him. um it's all about the exchange of favors. That's why no progress gets made, because these guys really just looking out for their own self-interest.
Good
um
stuff.
yeah, man. And then so the next scene, okay, I Google it because I forgot their guys names. It's Mahone and Polk.
On
the,
poke.
Mahone and Polk, the old alcoholic cops. And they stumble in. McNulty and Greggs are writing hard away, and they show a nice contrast because they show McNulty and Greggs, they're working hard at their typewriters, and Freeman's just painting his little figurines and listening to jazz. um Mahone and Polk show up. Great acting too, by the way, when they're drunk, because it's not like too over the top, but it
Yeah.
is believable as like old drunk people. Like it's just that level of like, yeah, that's how they would act. They're clearly hammered. McNulty even like makes a comment saying like, "Oh, you went for a taste,"
Went for
which is
the
ironic too, because he's an alcoholic, but he's a functioning
Yeah,
alcoholic.
for sure. And he says, I wonder what you got to do to get thrown out this police force, too. You know,
Yeah,
right.
and she says like, "Keep going, you might just find out."
yeah.
Foreshadowing, but they then they give him a picture like, hey, we found Avon Barksdale. He's like, you could tell they went to the department for like 10 minutes and then spent 5 hours at the bar thinking like their job was done. And they just put in as minimal effort as possibly can. They found an old white man named Avon Barksdale, and McNulty says like, "Excuse me for giving a shit." Like that's really revealing about how he feels, But he's like, "I can't. This is an old white man." And they're like, "Well, we did our job for the day. If you want someone better, do it yourself." And they just leave.
Yeah. I love that. I love that Greg's is kind of like maybe he's white.
Maybe what?
Yeah,
Maybe he's white.
Maybe what? We don't know.
it's true. I don't know anyone else named Avon. It's the first
Facts.
name I've ever heard. um,
But
And then go ahead, Jack. I think I'm gonna touch on what you're about to say.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that yeah, they kind of have a laughing moment. They're basically laughing at how like idiotic these guys are and how basically hopeless their efforts are right now because they have zero information. Um, what do you
you
think,
know,
Jess?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say that when he says when she's given the information, when Graves is running down the information, the little bit of information she has, we finally get some action from Lester Freeman. Like we finally get like who is this character that doesn't say anything? Like, he finally voices some words. He's like, "Where'd you hear that?" He gets up, he has his little figurine still in his hand, and he asks her, he's like, "Well, where'd you hear that he was Golden Gloves?" And that's all he says. And then she's like, from an informant, from a criminal. And this is another thing, so I'm glad I'm bringing this up. Is that when she says I got it from an informant, is that Bubbles? Is she talking about Bubbles or another informant of her? She said vague CI information. Is that from Bubbles or is that another CI? I don't know.
I think it's another CI that we
It's
don't
got to
see.
be. That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Because how would Bubbles know about him in New York? Like, Bubbles
Yeah,
might not need. I don't know. I was thinking
Bubbles
about
never went out of Baltimore.
No,
Right.
I think that's one. I think that's one of the Wire's subtleties of Kima got multiple CIs. So maybe they don't have to introduce us to every CI she has, but that line right there tells us. Yeah, that's a good point. I
Yeah,
didn't pick up
I
on it.
wasn't sure because I wasn't sure. I'm like, we only get to see Bubbles as her CI, but when she said vague CI information, but that information is kind of telling. Like, how the CI know he got a girlfriend in New York, like kind of thing. I don't know. Like it, I don't know. It was just a little nugget I thought about. Like, I don't know. This don't sound like Bubbles, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
Yeah, so he says golden gloves, and that's when Freeman's ears perk up. That's when he just leaves. And he asks some questions, and McNulty and Greggs are genuinely confused because he's like, until then, we never heard anything from this guy. Um, and then he drives to this really poor area where people ask him like if he wants to buy crack. It just shows like
I love that. I love it.
yeah.
I love it. I love it. Do you all know who that person is? The person
No.
that asked him, "You got blue tops looking for blues." Y'all know who that is?
No.
That's the guy that beat on Bubbles in season 4.
No way, really?
That's the same guy.
Oh shit.
That's him. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's him.
That's
Got
amazing
blue top
detail.
looking for blues. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
the guy that beat up on Bubbles in season 4.
Mm.
Let me ask y'all this too while we're touching on it. That CI said he might have a girlfriend in New York, right? When D'Angelo got locked up, he sent him to New York to get them some more supply. I know the three of us probably would, but do you think the fans would like almost like a prequel to kind of see like what business information they had in New York? Because it seems like New York was a hub for some of their business kind of thing.
I actually would not like a prequel.
Really?
I don't think they did the prequels justice when they did that. The little prequel, the prequels, I think were a bad Wire moment. To be honest,
Really?
I didn't like that whole Prop Joe as a little kid.
Oh, you
Let
talking
me
about the
make
little
a
small ones, the
proposition.
little short ones? You're
Yeah,
talking about the little short ones at the end. Yeah.
I don't think they executed those well. So I don't think they would execute this. I think they're flawed on prequels. It's just
Really?
my opinion.
Yeah.
I didn't like the story of Omar. I didn't. I mean, Omar's was a little more interesting, but the prequels didn't sit well with me.
I'm kind of with Jesse on this one because it's like, I don't know. I feel like you can never match the power of the originals, right? Unless
Yeah.
it's like unless there's like a true artistic vision behind it, like unless David Simon directly was like, I'm gonna make this,
It had to be him. Like I
Yeah.
wouldn't even expect the same level
Right.
of great cinema and great writing if it wasn't David Simon. Like, I
Right.
wouldn't even expect that. But I don't know, something about, I don't know. I guess I like stories, like backstories too. Like kind of.
No,
yeah,
I
it
get
kind of
where
works.
you're going with it, but I just don't think David Simon executes prequels well.
For
And
real.
my example would be the 3 short prequels
that
that
we got to see.
Yeah,
I
It's
thought
like
that was a joke video. I didn't know that was a real. Like when I thought there was a YouTube video of like a little kid as Prop Joe. I thought that was like just somebody made a YouTube
no,
video. That
no,
was
yes.
it was actually between seasons 4 and 5, if I'm not mistaken. They gave out 3 prequels.
oh.
So they are supposed to be part of the show. It came on
Yeah.
HBO and stuff. So
I never saw them until like when I bought the set. Like I had the whole DVD set, and on the last disc, it's got like some bonus features, and it had those 3 prequels. It had like Bunk and McNulty, like right when they first met.
Yeah, they showed them on HBO. They showed them like during like I think a period of like in between. But
I mean, my mentality is like, look, anything can work, but it's like
it won't impact the same. No, yeah, no, I think I hear what y'all saying. It almost like don't even try, like kind of thing, Like,
what would have been interesting is when D'Angelo's finally fesses up to the cops that Weeb's the one who killed the tap 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 murder.
Mm-hmm.
Flashbacks to that scene. I don't know if
that would have been cold. Yeah, that would have been really cold. Yeah, that'd have been pretty cold. Yeah. Okay.
Because there was a Sopranos prequel, and I'm like the biggest fan of the Sopranos. It was called The Many Saints of Newark.
Do not watch it.
The Sopranos prequel sucked a bag of dog shit, in my opinion. So it's just like, because it just felt forced. It felt like it didn't feel like a genuine vision. It felt like this dude's like, "Hey man, we want to make a Sopranos movie." I'm like, okay, I don't know. It, like I said, anything can work in theory, right? But like, I think you have to have the right mentality behind it.
Yeah.
So
Interesting. Okay. All
yeah.
right, Jack, keep us going, my guy.
You got it, man. So, oh yeah, so I'm sorry, Freeman looks at that guy and is like, "Are you kidding me?" Like he's really disgusted by the world in which he's in right now, you know. And he goes to this gym, the old boxing gym, and the boxing gym too. It doesn't look like it's in great shape. It's almost like as ragged as like Cuddy's boxing gym in season 3, you
Well,
know. And
boxing
yes,
boxing gyms are like usually like that though.
oh,
Boxing, usually.
I'm not a boxer, so you can probably tell.
Yeah,
But
I've been in boxing gyms. I don't. I think I took one lesson in my life, but I'm a boxing fan.
okay,
Um, I know the I know that it's usually like they're usually like torn up places, and
that
it's
makes
not
sense.
nothing fancy.
I
It's
got
not it's not the wild card gym.
yeah, it's not a reflection on it. It's just that's how they are. I got you.
Yeah.
So then the next scene, McNulty goes to the FBI. A nice little contrast too, because the FBI is their office is very clean and neat, as opposed to the dungeon which Daniels is forced to work from earlier on. You know, everyone's wearing suits; they're all proper, and McNulty basically is like, "Hey, we're not." He provided them with information about a drug gang, and McNulty's friend in the FBI basically said like, "Oh, thanks for your help, but it doesn't really matter." Because all we care about now is finding Osama bin Laden and terrorism, and
Yeah.
drugs took a back seat again. 2002, very much of the time, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
9/11 was huge. I
yeah,
mean,
Yeah, no, for sure. I can't imagine how stuff shifted in the respective like government and police departments after that happened. I can't even. I was
well,
in I don't know, 7th grade, I think, when that happened. Like,
I'm sure a lot of this is true. I'm sure a lot of the
oh yeah,
like the staff went from drug bust to anti-terrorist
of
attacks.
course.
That was a huge deal. Um, yeah, I like the way they implemented that into the storyline, and McNulty, I you know McNulty has friends in high places, right?
for
He
sure.
got the judge, he got this FBI,
FBI.
he has Perlman, he got
Mhm.
So it's funny because some cops might piss off some cops, but McNulty kind of has a lot of friends,
Yeah,
Mhm.
nobody else is a friend of the FBI. I mean, he definitely has Perlman,
Yeah,
uh, but yeah, no one else has like a friend in the FBI. I think they also mentioned like they went to police academy together, and
something. They
they
got some ties or something. Yeah,
they went to like they chose different paths, right? But it's funny because both of them are similar because McNulty's friend in the FBI is dissatisfied because all the FBI cares about is terrorism, even though he's doing this good police work. In the same way that McNulty's frustrated because he's not being provided any real resources. And so again, with the exchange of favors, McNulty provided that to his. I gotta look up the character's name. But he says, "Okay, I'll provide you with real technology, basically, to help in your, you know, to
Yeah,
help your detail."
yeah. I can't think of his name. Leland, do you know his name?
I can't even. I'm not even.
Uh,
My brain is not even trying to even figure out his
Right.
name because I'm like, what's his name? I'm sure if I put enough scenes together, I can figure it
Oh,
out.
Fitzhugh. Okay, yeah,
Fitz, yeah, that's right. Fitz, that's
Fitzhugh.
right. That's right. That's right.
Both
That
two
hero.
Irish guys from the police academy together. Um, yeah, a recurring, interesting character. Um, the one time we see like outside of their own police organization, is
Mhm.
with the FBI. And like really cool details too when they're in that office too. You hear all the wires whirring. Um, so then the next scene, there, Bodie has all the all the addicts line up in the projects, and great like details of the raining. They're all muddy. They look completely disheveled, and like again, it's like dehumanizing to these people. They're lining up like basically treating them like animals. They're just collecting
The
drugs. It's really
drill.
sad.
Single file line.
Yeah, and it's just they're all like adults, and they're just all it's really dehumanizing and bleak, and they're all collecting money.
Well,
And
back to your point too. I'm sorry to cut you off, but
yeah,
back to your point about the opening scene, and now touching on how we see them now. When Poot does say, "Well, they're drug fiends." We kind of when you're dealing with drug fiends, an addict, they lie, right? They're gonna lie to get, they're gonna cheat, they're gonna steal. So you do have to treat them with a little bit.
A
It
little
can't
different.
be it can't be like an order at McDonald's, right? Because most people don't go to McDonald's looking to get an extra happy Meal situation. They're trying to scam McDonald's. So you got to be on guard with the fiends and stuff. So
yeah, but I
And
don't know.
that's
They don't have to scream in their faces, and like I think
true.
there's a happy medium.
It's true.
I
yeah,
just I don't know. It does show like you guys are the reason that they're addicted. Like they are. I
yeah.
mean, they're not the reason, but they are the outlet for which they get addicted from.
Yeah. And I mean, too, just to touch on kind of, I guess, the difference in them, like, well, they are dope fiends. They will lie, cheat, and try
That's
to
what I
steal
mean.
from you. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like they did. Johnny and Bubbles did have fake money,
That's
you
what I
know,
mean. Yeah.
to try to, you know what I'm saying? Like, I guess for Pooh, it's like, well, I mean, they're not normal people, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're gonna lie, they're gonna cheat, they're gonna, they're not thinking of sound mind, kind of thing. And he's not wrong. It's not like he's wrong about it. It's just, I guess, being willing to stand on it and say it. Like, yeah, they ain't shit, really. Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of when you say it like that. But I get what he's saying, but I
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
why D'Angelo feels like, well, they're still people. Like, you making all this money. Why you
True.
can't, why do you have to talk to them like that? I guess it's what D'Angelo was trying to ask them. Like, what? Well, why? Kind of thing. And for Putin, like, well, they don't things. What do you mean? Why? Like, so.
But in addition, Stringer basically reveals like we're lying to them. They're basically saying like, "Hey, we're providing them with bullshit that's the same product," and he's like, "Well,
Yep.
they're just gonna come back." So it's just like everyone's scheming each other. There's no trust in that relationship on both ends. They basically, everyone's just trying to get ahead at the end of the day because it's not like you guys said, it's not a normal relationship where it's McDonald's, like you hand them money, they give you the thing. It's like there's so much disconnect between the server and the client here. um
So
and
you,
then we see the first appearance of Mr. Omar.
Omar.
And it's great because he's watching them too, right? Everyone's watching each other, and he's watching them, just lurking in the background like a predator stalking his prey, honestly. um this is real raggedy shit here, boys.
and hold that thought too, Jack. So, how many times is Omar cussing the show? Not a lot.
Not a lot.
How many
Hardly
times
ever.
did he what?
How many times does Omar curse like in the show?
Not that many.
Hardly ever. But when we're introduced to him, he lets off 2 or 3 curse words, kind of thing. Like, and he even says to Brandon in the episode, I think 4 or 5, he's like, "Why you
Yeah.
have to say those words? Why are you cursing so much?" But
Yeah.
we're introduced by Omar, we do get him cursing. But I also want to
But
know,
he's not. But he's not saying the F word though. I think the
he's
F
not
word.
right. He's just it's pretty subtle. But also too, Omar wasn't supposed to be on the show that many as long as he was, but the fans loved him so much they kept him. So I wonder if the whole no cursing thing, maybe that was, I don't know, maybe that came later, or I don't know. But
Yeah.
it's in the same season where he tells Brandon, why you have to say those words so much?
Yeah. Sometimes you see that with pilot episodes, like or when the character's first introduced, like I don't know if you guys ever watched Entourage, but
It's been
the
years.
the
I think I was a kid when I was watching Entourage. It's been years. Like,
the pilot episode of Entourage, they have Ari, the manager. They insinuate that he cheats on his wife, and then later on he's like the most faithful guy. So it's like, so yeah, it shows like that, and that's good that you brought that up, Leland, because the Wire is not exempt from making these mistakes. They're not exempt from contradicting. I think as Wire fans, just because it is the greatest show, we try to And my point is always going to be D'Angelo's. I think he's the one written like that the most, with the most inconsistencies. We try to make excuses for David. Well, I mean, David Simon is a genius writer. He's the greatest writer, but we try to make excuses like, no, it does tie in.
Right.
When
Right.
no, I think it might just be a mistake here.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
my
No, for sure. For
But
sure.
to play devil's advocate for a second, is it inconsistency or is it irrationality, right? Because it's like when characters make mistakes, or like when people make mistakes, you know what I mean? That's like human nature. Or like when they do something that goes against their
Sure.
code, like, you know. And I'm not saying that it never makes mistakes. Like, you know, they're definitely, I'm just saying it's like there's times when it's like I could see somebody doing something that contradicts what they normally do, because that's just like
Human nature.
wait, that's just the way people are. You know, sometimes people just do dumb things, and there are no real rhyme or reason. It's just kind of like it's just like because people are like contradictory in nature. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But yeah, no, I get what you're saying, because it definitely is like a different sense of like how he has that code, and this code's inconsistent. And I
Mhm.
definitely think that's the thing too, is like Omar has a code, but then he at times he doesn't abide by it at all. He just, you know,
yeah.
he's like an
I'm,
anarchist.
I mean, it's definitely possible that they changed them into like later on. Like, how cool would it be if Omar doesn't curse?
Mm,
And they just changed it.
yeah. I mean, the most unrealistic character, in my opinion, was Brother Mazone.
Yeah.
You know, he always came off like a character from like a different show to me. I was just like, this guy, like,
Why y'all so scared of this little man?
right.
Why are we so
I was just
scared
like,
of him?
this guy, you know, I was like, I don't know. He always came off as like a cartoon character to
Yeah,
me.
I agree
He
with
was like
that.
the boogeyman. They looked at him like he was the boogeyman. Like,
Right.
you know, I could do a whole episode on Brother Muzon. I won't even get into my thoughts right now on him.
Yeah.
You know, but that's yeah. I'm with you, Jack. I don't
No, but
know.
it's a great point that you brought up, Jesse, where it's like sometimes we tend to overlook flaws because we're so sort of like defensive, you know. But yeah, I don't know. With like D'Angelo, for instance, I just think it's irrationality, you know. But I definitely get what you guys are saying too. I think those are good points. Um, so, but yeah, so that's the first appearance of Omar, and then cut back to McNulty and Greg's just kind of hanging out with Bubbles. Like, you know, they've been working all day, and McNulty basically makes a pass at her. Like, he's, you know, just no, like, he doesn't give a fuck. He just says and does whatever he wants all the time. And Bubs is like, he basically says like, I think you're balking up the wrong pussy. Like, he doesn't.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a funny saying. I love that
Yeah.
scene. I love that scene.
And Greg's kind of says like she's the only female cop worth a damn, also because she's lesbian. She kind of like puts a time, like she kind of like stamps that. But
mhm,
that's something else that I don't think aged well. You know,
yeah.
because now I think the female officers, they wouldn't. I don't know. I think that's like a yesteryear thing. I think there's a lot of female officers that are up to it.
Yeah, for sure. No, for
Yeah,
sure.
it's a
For
shame.
sure.
It's a shame we lost Lynn, because this would have been a good time to get her point of view
Yeah,
on this
there
thing.
are definitely some female cops that are really about it and really adamant about their job. You know.
Yeah, because McNulty kind of said. I mean, we enter a little sexist thought process here, but it's their thought process. But he kind of says, lesbians are the only cops worth a damn that
Yeah.
actually do work. And Kima kind of agrees with him. She's like, yeah.
Yeah. And he asked
Look,
her,
he says,
he said, not to cut you off, Jack. He says, do you think because you're gay, that's why, you are this super cop? And she said, I don't know. She said, I don't know, if that's the reason why, but she pretty much said, if you get beat on a few times, it ain't that bad. Like I'm
Yeah.
pretty much like, I'm willing to get out of that car and go, seek danger, kind of, if you will, if it presents itself. And she said, some females aren't getting out of that car, and some men either.
Yeah.
She's right. I've seen a few cops, like when I'm driving and they don't even have the speed things up. It's like they just find somewhere. We're gonna find somewhere and just sit for a few hours. You know, they're not even tracking speed. So I'm like, what are they doing? Like, what is the, you know, I've had that question here in Georgia a few times. I'm like, well, if they're just sitting here and they're not tracking people's speeding, what are they doing? Are they just, I'm just sitting here. I found somewhere where I can just, you know, kick my feet up on the clock as a cop, you know, so.
Yeah.
Well, I think that
So
quote.
female officers, let me know if you're a female officer. Let me know how this scene sit with you.
Yeah, to have a female cop on. I think what he's saying was, I finally found an officer that's worth a damn. What I interpreted as was he was saying, I finally found a cop that I'm attracted to on a physical and intelligent level, and it turns out she was a lesbian. That's what I. You guys didn't interpret it that way. I thought that was what he was saying. That he
Well,
was
he
saying,
said. Well, he asked the question straight up. He says, "Do you think you're a better cop because you're a lesbian?" Right? Doesn't he ask that? Isn't that the question that comes?
Yeah, well, that was the next. But I thought it was because at first he was like, "So you married?" Like he was basically trying to like find out what her situation was, and he's like,
Oh
"Ah, it's
no,
too
no.
bad. I finally found a cop that was worth a damn, like somebody who is like that I could, maybe date." And then he's like,
Oh,
"Oh
You know
shit."
what? Why I
even
don't think it was he's making a pass at it. Like when you do a character analysis on McNulty, his main thing, no matter what, is being firstly, is being a cop. Like
Mm,
being a good or being a well-renowned cop. Like he wants to be known for that. It's what I live on. It's all I have. Really, I'm a functioning alcoholic. You know, I'm terrible in relationships. All I have really is me being this top tier cop. So to answer your question, I never looked at him as making a pass in that scene to her.
mm,
Many times I've seen the show, I always thought it was solely about her being a solid cop and him
interesting.
admiring her being a solid cop. It just so happens that she's gay. And the only cop that he's had as a female that was worth something was gay too. Like
Okay.
I never looked at it as him making a pass. I looked at it in season 3 when they were in the hotel room and he's like, hey, you know, I got these magic fingers, you know, kind of thing. That I took as a pass from McNulty. But in that scene, I never looked at it from that
well,
perspective.
I kind of looked at it as he was making a pass, but as soon as he found out she was a lesbian, like, oh, it makes sense. That's why you're a good cop. That's what I'm
Mm,
saying. That's yeah.
okay. See, that's what's great, man. We all have like three different interpretations of the same
Interesting
line,
perspectives.
Yeah, yeah, of the same line,
Never
three
thought about
different.
that from that scene. Not one
Yeah.
time have I ever thought about that. That's now I gotta rewatch it. Now I gotta rewatch it and see. I gotta study his facial expressions to see like, are you
It's
flirting?
like
What
it's
are you
a
on?
possible job because she doesn't have cops like trying to fuck her essentially. That's
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean. So she's like it actually helps with that aspect where I know that cops, if the cops know, she lets it known that she's a lesbian because she knows that cops aren't going to try to hit on her, even though they still do anyway because
Yep.
they act like fucking dogs.
They're
You know,
always looking at Kima.
the
Like they're
Yeah.
cra-
always looking at her throughout the show. For sure.
the crazy part is that we got almost zero action so far, right? And we're like
Mm,
so invested in these conversations.
Yep, that's
Like
facts.
that's the greatest part of the wire. Like
That's facts,
we're
man.
like
People always
what
be
he
like,
said, you know.
shows will be slow. They don't have any action, but here we are breaking it down. And it's like we haven't had any action yet, and we're locked in. You know,
yeah.
it's as if as if it's the most action-packed show you've ever seen, and we haven't even gotten to that level of the action that the Wire puts out. Like
That's what I love because the dialogue is like more fascinating to me. Then when the
yeah,
action comes, it hits like a fucking sledgehammer because
it does.
it's
I
so
think
abrupt.
I think the best dialogue ever written for sure. I think I might Better Call Saul might be second. I might have
Yeah,
to
and,
put Better
and you
Call.
know what? I think that's a conversation for us to have off of pod in
Yeah.
terms of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. I don't know how big of fans y'all are for those two shows too, kind of thing. But in terms of breakdowns, those two shows too have so many, just
So,
intricate moving nuggets to be talked about too. But that's an off pod probably conversation for us. So
sure.
Um, so then the next, definitely we'll do that. The next scene is D'Angelo going back to the strip club, walking upstairs. Everyone's counting money, and D'Angelo asks, like, "Where's the money go?" And Stringer just again, like, he doesn't respect D'Angelo, just kind of laughs, doesn't respond to him, just so condescending. And then he says, like, "Hey, they're complaining about the product," and like we kind of brought this up earlier. Stringer says, like, it's the same product. We're just calling it a different thing. And at the end of the day, they're dope fiends. They're gonna buy it no matter what. It's true
Yep.
because it's like they'll buy it no matter how shitty it is. They're addicted, and we'll make. I mean, even if it's worse, we'll make twice as much money and we'll sell more.
Yep.
It's like they really just have all the power, and a great Stringer scene too
I
because it
don't
shows
agree.
his intelligence.
I actually don't agree with Stringer though. Like, you know, if I mean, I hung around people that used to smoke weed and stuff, and they're not gonna chase around like weak weed, and
Yeah.
just keep going to you. They're gonna look for somebody with quality. So
But
I,
granted, a weed head and somebody that's chasing heroin,
sure,
those are two different. I've never done heroin, so those are two completely different things. So you gotta give me
but
1 second, okay? I'll be right. You
yeah,
all
yeah.
go ahead.
But doesn't Bubbles and Johnny even say like this when I don't feel it, I don't feel high.
Yeah,
Like,
it's true. Yeah, they get that little moment later, and also they do eventually. It shows that Stringer is wrong because eventually they do chase a different product. They go to like Prop Joe. That's
yeah,
one of the reasons why the Stanfield crew is able to do better than them because the Stanfield crew realizes actually it is the product that makes all the difference.
yeah. So
Uh,
I think Stringer is wrong in this scene. Yeah.
yeah, but he has just such confidence, in what he's
Sure, he
saying.
sells it. He sells it. But
Yeah.
I think I think he's wrong though. I think his point is ultimately wrong, but
Mm.
the loudest person in the room is right? So he said
Yeah, and he
all
says it like a
confidence.
snake. He's just like so like matter of fact in the way that he basically explains it. And it is kind of the thing because they have that like the different crews have that mentality of what's more important. Is it the product or the location? And some of them, I think it's like the Barksdale crew realize thinks it's the location, right? They say like, hey, we need to have these specific corners. It doesn't matter about the product. It matters about where the dope fiends are. But the Stanfield crew realizes like actually they'll go wherever the product is because they're addicts. They'll chase it down. So it's like a different business mentality that they have. So yeah,
So
definitely an interesting scene. And the first kind of scene we see where like they actually have a real conversation and Stringer isn't being an asshole to D'Angelo, he's just explaining the business to him.
isn't this the scene too when he says this is the money from the pit, you're doing good down there?
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
he gives him a little like,
um
it's like okay, he's giving him a little respect there.
so this is what I so this is what I don't understand either. So D'Angelo's getting scammed by money. He doesn't do the count right. He has to. They say, "Oh, You got to count the money down here." There's a few conversations, like the chicken McNuggets scene, or the D'Angelo telling him how to treat customers. But there's nothing that shows me that D'Angelo put like such a boost in this pit that he's making money. Like Stringer's like, "Oh, you making like."
What did he do different to make?
What did he?
I took the
If
notes.
anything, he's fucked up.
$22,000 in one day. 22.4 was the count.
Mm.
What did he do different to make $22,400 on the day that wasn't check day? What was he implementing?
Yeah, true.
Bring it up so quick. What? Because Bodie was there, so I don't know.
They
And
didn't
that's what I'm
change their
saying.
strategy either. They just
what
had the
I'm-
same thing.
And that's what I mean with the inconsistency with his writings on him. It's kind of like, okay, you want him to, you want him to, you want to show us that he brought the pit money, that he's a good leader, right? That was the point of the scene. Oh, he's making money. But every other scene you show me with him, you show me him fucking up. So, like,
Yeah.
it doesn't,
Short
doesn't
of telling them to have somebody else, bring them the drugs, so they don't get captured by anybody taking pictures.
right. That was a good.
What did he change
So that was
to make $23,000 in a day that they weren't doing before? Like, what's the change?
that was a good
right.
one.
They never touch on that. That's interesting.
Like that point when he showed them like, oh, we got to change it up here. You got to do this like that. Show me stuff like that. What did D do so different? Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
another
true.
thing too, 23,000 in a day. Like, they were making hella money. Like, when you start to tally up like some of the numbers, like when they tell them, hey, they're doing 60,000 a day. I remember when McNulty was talking, McNulty and Freeman were talking to Daniels about like how much money that the crew was actually bringing in. Like some of these numbers, like I'm taking notes on like episodes when I get a number figure to try to go back and like how much money was really being made. Because McNulty said in season 3, why don't we just let Stringer go around the board and collect another 200 million? So I'm like, now wait a minute, hold up. What was the numbers that these people were working with? Like, because it was for him to say 200 million in season 3, it made me think like, okay, maybe I missed something in the first 2 seasons. Like,
I don't know. We need David Simon on.
Oh, because what $200 million? Well, I'm like, okay, I don't remember.
I thought they said 2,300, not 23,000.
No, he said 22.4 from the low rise. That's the number I said, 22.4. So maybe that's. I don't think 22.4. Yeah, it would have to be 22,400. It wouldn't be
$2,240.
Right. Yeah, it's 22.4. But I just remember when McNulty was complaining about them not chasing Stringer or Stringer getting away. He said, "Why don't we just let them go around the board like Monopoly and collect another 200 million?" But he said million. I'm like 200 million. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
How? Wait a minute. What?
So
that's just a little like.
Yeah, the math ain't mathing. The math.
Hold on now. Hold on now. I know they had a bunch of businesses, some legitimate stuff, but I never saw a $200 million empire. Like, I guess I can go back and do some math, but that's like next level of fortune, kind of thing. So, just one of my little catches, I wanted to ask y'all about. So.
I have a friend that was in the that was in the FBI. He arrested like the Murder Inc. and stuff. He arrested everybody. Maybe he'll be willing to come on the podcast and share some numbers with how realistic the numbers are and stuff.
Yeah, because that's an interesting. I don't know, just that $200 million scene has always made me think like, okay, hold on, how rich was this organization? That's next level. That's more than just Baltimore. Like that's a multiple state operation kind of thing. That's like BMF numbers, like kind of thing. They got that was I think $250 million
living in mansions.
$252 million, and they were in 23 states or something, So I don't know. Just that number made me think.
And they don't show us them making like big drug deals. Like it's to crackheads,
Right.
So, I don't know.
Low level dealers. That's good points. No, it's true. I never thought about the math. It doesn't. Then again, I've always been horrible at math. You guys, I never. You guys put that together faster than I did there. It's true. So then we see D'Angelo talking to his the stripper from the first episode. Everyone talks about how what's his face? Stringer is like the most handsome. She's probably by far the most beautiful character on the show. I mean, just absolutely stunning. Anyway,
even with the big ass glasses on.
I love. Yeah, dude, she looks great. And so she goes down there, and very like the way it's lit is great. Very atmospheric, very foggy. That old like nightclub kind of vibe to it. And he tries to like impress her again by being like, "Hey, remember me from the other day?" He thinks his status will impress her, and she's like, "I don't care who you are." And he basically, he's basically hitting on her at this point, kind of setting up their relationship before old Lester Freeman comes and snags her away later on.
Legend, my boy, legend. Legend.
Goes. That was one of the funniest things is when he just comes in and basically says like, "Hey, I'm really, I'm the top dog here."
I'm his right hand man. Yeah.
And you know what? I'm glad you brought that up about him mentioning that. So he says to her, "My uncle's the money man, right?" You don't even know her. Like what?
Yeah. He's.
What are you doing? What are you doing? He's the illegal money man. Like this, his name isn't on the club. Like, what are you doing telling her this information? You just met her.
Very much like The Sopranos too. Like, bang.
I never until doing the pod with you all, I've never rewatched and understood how upset I was about him doing that until I was taking notes, and I'm like, wait a minute, what? Why would you tell her that? You don't even know her. Like,
that's actually believable because
pillow talking. I
He's
guess
trying to impress her. He's trying to like be like,
I get it.
Guys say stupid shit to get laid, right?
Yeah, he's, you know, because otherwise he's just another guy at the club, right? He's trying to establish himself as a
facts. That's fair. That's fair. I guess I was just thinking like, man, you supposed to know the code, man. What are you doing?
No doubt. You know? If Avon heard that conversation, he was smack him upside his head.
Yeah, but
what?
When we see beautiful women, we say dumb shit. You know, to try to impress.
No,
it's true. Yeah,
it's true. So I gotta give him. I mean, you know, some guys should be a little more guarded. I mean, D'Angelo definitely should have been more guarded. But yeah, this is just him trying to impress her. I'm his right man.
We can contrast that with like Marlo in season 4, right? D'Angelo is a human who wants love and intimacy, whereas like in season 4, there is a stripper, or I think it might have been season 5,
season 3. When
Marlo's
in the car.
Yeah, when he just has sex with that woman in the car, and she's like, "Do you want to dance?" He's like, "I don't do that." He's just like, he has no sort of emotions other than like the immediate urges. Where it shows like D'Angelo, no, he's a real person. He actually treats people with respect. He sees her like as a real human being, even though she's a stripper. He genuinely likes her.
And he tells her too about the point when he asks her, "Where you from?" You know, like the point. Is that a foreshadowing to season 2? Like, or am I just reaching? You know, like, you know, he said when she tells him where she's from, he says, "Oh, the point." You know, so is that the foreshadowing to, you know, season 2? You know, where Locust Point kind of thing, or is that just, I don't know? Maybe I'm reaching and trying to connect stuff that don't connect. I don't know, but
everything connects. I didn't pick
right.
So, country versus county, right? Because he's like, he mistakes the country from the county, and he ends up going to county jail. That's true. Everything foreshadows. You know? That's a good point. So next scene, back in the office downstairs, Sidner is dressed up like an addict. He's about to go undercover with Bubbles. One of the great scenes, because Bubbles basically shows like, what are you doing? First off, you have a wedding ring. You need more dirt. And like Sidner has a great line. He's like, okay, I should just I should just become a drug addict for a year and come back when I'm more
ready. See if I can pull it off.
You know, and he basically is just kind of making fun of him for like how like unrealistic he looks.
Yeah, he said, "You married to the needle, my boy."
Married to the needle now. Yeah, I love. Oh man,
he doesn't have the empty caps on his shoes, you know. And then McNulty like kind of gives that line. He's like, "Sorry, are you a little offended?" And he's like, "A little bit." It shows that they genuinely like Bubbles and respect him, and he's found his place amongst them. Like he's not just a CI; they consider him almost like part of the crew. It's like a bonding moment, you know.
And I love one of the funniest moments is when McNulty asked me, he said, "Where's your mic at?" She's like, "It's down in my dick," you know. And then he said, "I figured they won't go look there." And then Carver's like, "Well, I don't know. Where you twirling around might be the first place they look." I think that is one of the funniest scenes in the season. Like I thought that was just so funny, the way Carver just did his little poses with Sidner. Like it was a really funny moment.
It's realistic, you know. It's realistic.
It is. It's realistic. And for them to say, for Bubbles to tell Sidner, "Hey, we need to make sure, you know, you need to go dance on some vials," you know. So there's this vial sitting in the street. Like I've never been to Baltimore, so it's just empty vials all over the street for Sidner to just go walk on and, you know, get some crack glass on his shoes. Like that's crazy. That sounds crazy, you know. So. That's another note I took too.
Yeah, it's not hard to find there. It's just you just walk out on the street and, you know, it is, like you said, it's something realistic that people would say. It just comes off as like people talking to each other. It doesn't come off like dialogue.
Yeah. I mean, the lines that Bubbles said is like heartbreaking too. You're married to the needle now. That would have been part. You're like, he's like, you can't walk without stepping on dead bodies. Like, you know, like
there's no real relationships.
Yeah.
it
What was
shows
that?
there's no real relationships. He doesn't have like a wife or any meaningful relationships. It's all just your relationship to heroin there. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, anything you got to value would not be on you. That's it's sad. You
Yeah,
know.
that's facts though. All right, Jack, where we go next?
Oh yeah. All right. So and we're almost done with the episode. Then we see the they're watching the uh Sidner and excuse me,
Bubbles.
Bubbles buying heroin. They're watching them while at the same time they're being watched by Omar in his van over there.
How
Everyone's
long was he
watching each
really
other.
there? How long was he there? He was there long enough for them to pull up, set up, and he's still there. I'm still there
Mhm.
scoping out my next move. Like it shows his persistence as far as having to be patient with what I'm doing because he was there long enough to watch them. I was there
Yeah,
long enough to set up and watch the crew that I'm about to rob, and I sat here long enough to watch that. Oh, the police have a snitch in here too. He was there all day. I sat
right.
all day and watched. So that just shows who Omar, his patience in terms of when it's time for him to do a job. Like he's,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
he's three
sit and
steps
I'm gonna
ahead.
scope out the whole place all day if I have to. Like,
Yeah,
well,
he's three steps ahead of the game. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I think I brought it up earlier. It's like a nature document. He's
I
like,
can't hear Jack. I can't hear you.
can
You
you hear
guys
me
can
now?
hear me?
Can you hear me?
we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Like I was saying
Can you
earlier,
hear
it's
Jack?
Yeah, I can hear Jack.
All right. I'm gonna. Sorry, guys. I'm gonna leave and come back. All right.
I got you.
okay. I said earlier, it's kind of like, it's like a lion just stalking he's just like
Stalking his prey.
patiently wait. Yeah. And he just knows he's just biding his time. And you're right. That's how Omar knows that Bubbles is the CI because he sees him talking to a guy who's obviously a cop and he sees them walking away at the same time that the van walks away. Um, so that's how they know what's going on. Uh, the next scene is once they find the drugs that they catch, which is like doesn't matter, it's from low level dealers. Daniels comes down and tells them the bad news that we're gonna do a huge raid. And Daniels isn't happy to break this news. He knows that it's bullshit. He's just doing his job. He was just told like this is what we have to do. We have to use huge raid. McNulty even says like lieutenant, and he's like, I know. Like he gets it. He knows that this is bullshit, but it's like he doesn't have a choice. Otherwise, he would get fired. And again, it's why I feel bad in a way for Daniels because he really is caught in this like impossible position. He can't just refuse to do this raid. He has to. It's his job. And he knows that they're going to blow the entire mission when they do it, which they do.
Mm-hmm.
So, a nice little character moment from Daniels. Um, Then the next scene, McNulty goes to Perlman's house. Says like, "How do you clone a beeper?" And it's just great because he just shows up at like 9 at night, like, and he finds
Menace. Menace.
he just patiently waits, and she's like, "That's it," and he's like, "What?" And then and then they have sex, establishing that his relationship. Um,
And hold that thought too, Jack, really quick. Just the wire brilliance. When that in that sex scene, if y'all listen, this is something completely. It don't even matter. But they even moan in sync. Like I'm like,
mm,
okay, David Simon. Like, all right, bro, we get it. You know how to write. We get you pay attention to detail. But come on now. Well, like the moans are completely in sync the whole scene. Like it's crazy. Like it's just
yeah,
I don't know. Like certain stuff like that. I get my mind gets boggled. Like I'm like, man, what? Why? Like, why did you think that was necessary? And it's awesome. But I'm like, dang, why would you even think? Okay, yeah, this scene, y'all are gonna moan completely in sync the whole way through. Like, I don't know. It's just, man, it's stuff like that that makes me. I never, never not love this show. Excuse the double negative, but
yeah, it seemed realistic, definitely. And it's like one thing that's interesting too is that she's like, when you were married, our dates were like in a hotel. Like you
mm-hmm.
actually cared more about it because you were trying to sneak off. But now that you're single, it's like it doesn't really matter to try to put any effort into it. You just
Yeah,
kind of he uses her like just like to get what he wants.
yeah,
Like he
Well, and
doesn't.
it also shows us she was the other woman. I mean,
Yeah,
she was she might be the reason for the divorce.
Yeah,
right,
yeah. She's not completely innocent at all here. She,
right,
she's
right.
having
And
an affair
she
with a
told
married
him
man.
no. She told him no. How did he end up in her bed? Like,
No, that was that. No,
you
and
know,
Yeah, there was like, she was like, no, and then he gives her that look, and then we see, okay, like,
okay.
that was
McNulty,
just like,
they give McNulty all the love. He gets all of the
yeah,
love from the women in the show. It's almost like him and David Simon are kin or
yeah,
something. Because he writes some of the most craziest sex scenes in there for McNulty. He gets all of the women love
all the
every
women love
season,
McNulty.
no matter what. You know.
yeah.
Yeah, it's true. He gets like he has that kind of alpha male mentality. He's just like he kind of says, and because I guess one of the things is he's not like afraid of anything really. He just kind of says and does whatever he wants, and has that like that mentality of like I don't care what anyone thinks. Um, and he's a good looking guy too. I'll say that. But yeah, so then she has a great line to her after she has sex, and she's like, "Fuck you, McNulty," and that's the second time he says, "What did I do?"
What did I do?
The fuck
Uh,
did I do?
so then the next scene is the first real action scene, the
Mm-hmm.
first really violent action scene, right? Um, D'Angelo goes out to buy food, lake trout sub, a little great Baltimore detail there.
I'm sorry, but that's just another D'Angelo inconsistent writing. You send Poot to go buy sandwiches.
Right when
You're,
the
you're
re-up is
the
coming?
leader. The re-up is coming. You're the leader. I'm gonna go get sandwiches. What? Like no, like
Because
you
he's
said
stupid.
Poot come. Yeah, but it's Poot come here. Here's money.
Go get the food.
Yeah,
Gina,
the
come here.
sandwiches.
Me and
Yeah,
Bodie have to be here for the re-up. You go get the food.
and I know he gets reprimanded later, but they say they just told us he's a good leader, that he's making money in the pit.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I just think he's just a dumb kid, which is why which is why he gets killed earlier on in the show. Like I think the thing he's only in his position of power because he's Avon's nephew.
Facts.
You know,
That's facts.
it's
But
like
his
it's
mom is who she is too. Like we don't really touch on his mom too much. I guess we'll get into her later. But she's an intricate part in the they don't really touch on it in the show. But like she does a lot behind the scenes as far as the money goes, but they never really touch on exactly what her roles is. Like, what her roles are rather. That's an interesting part of the show that they never really touch on. But I know when Avon got locked up and Avon was trying to tell him, like, I'm ready to get back active, Stringer was like, no, you lean on me and Brianna for that money. We deal with the money, and you just lay back. But the show never touches on exactly what her roles are in the organization.
Yeah, and Jack, I get your point that it's just a dumb mistake, and he's just a dumb young person. But I still don't buy it though. He's been the leader of the crew in the high rises, committed murder. So now he goes to the low level pits. Supposedly he's changing the game. Supposedly he's bringing in good money down there, so he has good leadership ability. And then a re-up, which is a big transaction. You go, I'm going. Even if me, you, and Leland were on a work project, right? And I'm the supervisor. Do I say I'm gonna go get the pizza, or do I say, Leland, hey, here's $20? Can you go get the pasta?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's common sense.
Yeah.
It's like
it
But he
couldn't wait.
lacks common sense.
Yeah,
That's why he's able to get picked up.
I get that. Yeah,
it couldn't wait though. Like we couldn't wait until Stinkham came and dropped off the re-up to go to the like
you're not going to starve to death.
It's a conveniently written plot that has that I feel has a hole in it. That, but you could chalk it up to a dumb mistake, sure.
But at the same time too, and I took this note down too. Had he been there, it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah,
Would have got stuck up. You think D'Angelo would have stopped any of them shotgun bullets.
That's true.
No, he
That's
would.
true.
You know, it wouldn't have mattered.
That's a great point, actually.
I think it's meant to show his just he doesn't think proper because
Right.
even the murder you said, like the murder that he committed, that was itself a mistake. Like that was a really dumb, rash decision. He doesn't. He's just a complete fuck up. Like I bring back like The Sopranos. I know you guys haven't seen it, but it's like Christopher Christopher is like he's only in his position because he's Tony's nephew,
Right.
and he's constantly fucking up, and there's no real like he feels frustrated because people don't give him the respect, but he doesn't deserve it, and that's kind of how I feel about D'Angelo, where it's like
But what? So then, why did you tell us earlier on the show that you're doing such a good job down there in the pit?
No, it's true. I agree with that. Yeah. No, I agree with that. I just think like he's just he's just kind of he doesn't make the right decisions, you know.
No,
I got a question too about that.
I get that, but if he is a fuck up, then and I know I'm harping on it too much, but if he's a fuck up, stay with the fuck up narrative, right?
Yeah.
Don't how if you're such a fuck up, then how did you change the pit?
Yeah.
Like
yeah, no, I'm with you. We're with you. I agree. I agree. From Omar's perspective, he got really mad when Brandon said his name, right?
100%. So go ahead, Leland. I want to hear your thoughts on this.
But why though? Like, so if people know who you are and your thing is I'm coming in barefaced because I'm Omar already. If you don't want Brandon to be like, okay, exposed, why not mask him up? Why not put a mask on him if you're trying to protect him from saying your name? Why you get so mad when he says your name if that's your calling card? If you're supposed to see Omar coming, why did he get so mad when they said Omar? Like,
that's a good point. And I didn't think about that. That is a good point. Number one, I love the stash house robbery. It just shows the patience of Omar. It shows Omar's not scared to use the gun. Bah, right in the leg. Wear that, shorty. Goes right to the kid, right? The kid gives it up.
Without flinching, he blows his knee off.
Yeah. And I'm sorry we didn't let you explain the scene, Jack. We kind of jumped ahead there.
No,
but
good. The last thing I'll say about this, is that I think that contradiction is interesting, where it's like somebody has good ideas and they're wise, but they're like they have bad impulse control, and they don't like. I feel like that's human. Like I feel like I know people like that are like they have they're smart in a way, but they lack common sense. You know what I mean? That's almost like a real thing where I feel like people are like that a lot, where they're just like, he knows like about business, and he knows that he understands like the game and the scenes behind it, but he also just like just doesn't like like I say, he lacks common sense. But so I don't know. I definitely get what you guys are saying though, where he's just like he has a lot of contradictions to himself as a character too, especially early on. And that is one of the biggest mistakes he makes, is just like going to get fish sandwiches when
it's like Leland said though, what difference would it really have made? I don't think it would have made too much of a difference. I mean, you have an extra, but Bodie's supposed to be the lookout anyway, so where's Bodie?
Right. Yeah, it's true.
But so
he should have sent Wallace down there also. He's he has no business.
So Omar getting mad at Brendan, right? I feel like it was I actually like it, and I do think it's realistic, and I feel like it was a knee-jerk reaction, like, fuck, what the fuck you doing? Like, just instantly pissed off. Like, you're right, Leland. Omar's the name. The name enough carries. Everybody knows it's Omar robbing you. You're right about that. So but maybe he just, and now I'm being one of the people trying to look deep into it. But I'm gonna go the Jack route here. Maybe it's a knee-jerk reaction. You get pissed off real quick, right? Like, we can't always explain why we get mad.
Right.
And
valid point.
And I think when he tells Brendan later on, I ain't worried about me, baby boy, I'm worried about you and stuff, and like kind of like I think that's just like him making up to his girl. You know,
Yeah.
like, hey baby, I didn't mean to snap on you. It's
Okay.
my fault.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't even believe that whole I'm just worried about you. I think that's how Omar spinned it.
Okay.
After
Mm.
like apologizing to his girl.
Right. Right.
Type
No,
of
I'm with you.
deal, you know?
It sets up their relationship in a way,
Yeah.
you know.
No, I'm with you.
And it's just like a fierce scene the way we see Omar. Like it's like he really is like that's the scary up at like we're in episode 3. That's the scariest scene in the entire show so far. That's the
Yep.
most intense, violent scene. That's almost like a changing point in the show where like, oh no, this we are because like you said, it's very dialogue heavy, and this is the part like no, we are gonna show like
Let's show some action.
real violence and action, and the way Omar just points the gun and doesn't even flinch, and then he points it and he shoots that guy in the knee, and he asks and he's like, where is that? And the guy like kind of gives that look of like I can't tell you. Like he knows what's about to happen. He
Mm-hmm.
just like he knows that like if I tell you I'll get killed too. So he's
So I guess you just take these shotgun shells to your knees there. I guess
yeah.
you know you just have to take that on the chin, man. You know.
He's cold blooded, and then yeah, they escape, and like they know, oh shit, we're gonna get a lot of slack
From the crew,
from the
from the
crew,
bosses.
and that's that. We got a couple more scenes left. Okay, we see them. What's his face? Everyone's getting locked and loaded to do this bullshit raid that's not going to accomplish anything except for McNulty, who just shows up in plain clothes, and Daniels comes like, "Get in my office," and it really is a moment where like you get why Daniels hates him because he says like you're standing me up like this, and McNulty says like I don't mean to stand you up, but it's like that's exactly what you are doing. It doesn't even matter if you mean to do that. You're being blatantly insubordinate,
You couldn't
and
just go.
yeah, you couldn't
You,
just
you
go,
couldn't
you
just
know.
suit up and go.
I actually like McNulty's stance here. I'm
I
not
do
gonna
I mean,
too.
I agree with it. I
I do
agree,
too.
but I
I
just
agree
think
with him
it's like,
too.
damn.
I'm like in front of the whole crew, you couldn't just be like, "Hey, Daniels, look, I'm not trying to go, bro. Like, I'm not trying to go." You know, you had to do it in front of everybody. Like, McNulty's like, "Yeah, nothing wrong. Ain't nothing wrong with me. I'm just not
Yeah,
going." You know,
yeah.
it's like how he looked at him, like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Nothing wrong with
I
me."
I I mean I like his whole I'm not gonna help you gut my case.
Yeah,
Uh,
Yeah.
but you're not the lieutenant, McNulty. You don't get to
yeah.
make the decision. It's just like some of his decisions that he can't make and he shouldn't make. Well, I'm gonna do it anyway. You
He
know,
has
like
no
it's
respect for
just
rank.
none whatsoever.
Well,
None
and
whatsoever.
this also comes back to who his friends are, right?
Mm-hmm.
His he's best friends with a judge. He's sleeping with the idiot,
Perlman.
like he's sleeping with Perlman. Like he kind of thinks he's untouchable at some points, right? He thinks
Yeah,
he's because he has friends in high places, so he
Mm.
thinks he could talk to a boss like that.
yeah. And he always thinks he's the smartest. They
Yeah.
established that too.
Yeah.
You know. So
I mean, yeah, no, he does just blatantly commit insubordination. And Daniels even says, like, you couldn't just call in sick. And then, like, and there's a great line where McDulty's like, I'm not sick. And Daniels like, yeah, you are.
yeah,
Like,
you are.
you are sick in
You're
the head
mentally
for
sick.
the,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, like, you are insane, like, for doing this right now. And it is a moment where it's like, he is right in this sense, but like it's like I quote like the Big Lebowski is like you're not wrong, you're just an asshole. Where it's like you're just, you know what I mean? You are right in that sense, but god damn, why did you have to like? You didn't have to humiliate him like that in front of
Yeah,
the because Daniels doesn't even want to do this. Like I said, it's
right.
not like it's not his idea at all. It's he was just told this is what they have to do. Um,
But I
and-
actually have a question. What the fuck did Jimmy do?
oh yeah, what the fuck did he do? Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a great philosophical question. We see Herc comes back and he's like, "I'm ready to go," and they all leave, and it shows like Presbo's like disappointed. It's like a small moment that made me laugh because it just reminded me of like a kid who can't play with his
Can't
friends
play
because
with the
he's
big
sick.
kids. You gotta
You know,
stay
he just has to
back.
sit home, and it's just like it's very fun. It's like a very small thing. And then we see what's his face? Oh yeah, Weebay basically berating D'Angelo and basically saying everything you guys are saying is like you have to be the one on top. like you fucked up. Now we're down all this money, and basically
I,
saying like what's wrong with you.
I love this actor, by the way.
We
Uh,
bet, yeah, he's great.
Phenomenal.
you know, no, thinking is what you weren't doing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's such
Now we
real.
look like bitches.
It's so real. It's so realistic, you know. And then Bodhi says, I heard one of them say Omar, and then you get the Omar name out there and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Two things. Two things. One, that actor Weebay, he's the only one from the Barksdale show that's in every season from the Barksdale crew. Nobody else is in every single season, 1 through 5, but he is.
Interesting.
And then,
No, Pooh.
Pooh. Yep, you're right. Was he in season 4? Season
Yeah.
2?
He comes back. He comes back. He comes back with Bodhi. Remember, he leaves.
Yep,
Bodhi.
he's in season 2. He's in season 3. Yep, you're right.
But you
Season
see him, he
4,
works at Foot Locker at the end.
in season 5. Yep, you're right.
He's the
You're right.
pawn that made it across the board,
Yeah. Good job, Jesse. That's a good catch right there, my boy. Okay. And then my next question is, does Weebay not know Omar or Bodhi? Neither one of them know. No
that's
Omar?
a little. That's a
Well,
little.
I think they say
weird
like
right there.
Omar, like are you talking about the Omar? Like that's what I interpret.
Okay.
As.
So
Okay.
I'll good job. Jack, that's always what you do. You always got to make it like, okay, well, look, now this is probably what they're thinking you are, So that's I appreciate that so much. Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe that is him. Like
that would be the
Omar. That make the most sense.
Yeah, that would make the most sense because we already know everybody knows Omar. So I kind of agree. Yeah, I was with you, Leland. He says one of them said Omar.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
but
okay.
When they're talking
I took it as who's Omar.
When they're talking to Avon though, and they're kind of explaining who. So Avon and Stringer don't know who.
Interesting.
Omar is.
Huh.
Well, I don't think Omar. I don't think Omar's made his way up to the conversations of Stringer and Avon. More the lower levels know Omar, and they go. So they'll go to like all right. So if Bodhi gets stuck up by Omar, he'll go to D'Angelo. So D'Angelo will go to Avon and String, but he'll just. I think he'll say like, oh, we lost the package here, and probably not even have to like make excuses
for it. Yeah,
make excuses where you don't have to throw out like, yo, we got punked by Omar, because you don't want to keep going to your boss and saying we got punked by this guy Omar, right? I don't know.
I'm with you.
Yeah, I don't know. I always thought the way I heard it was just like Omar, like, oh, you talking about
talking about the Omar,
right?
Yeah, but
you might be right though. I don't know, honestly.
Yeah, but he's saying maybe that but he's saying even after that, it's obvious Stringer and Avon never heard of him.
Right.
Yeah. That's so just I don't know, just a nugget. I mean, if the projects and the pit were, this staple of drugs, as it was portrayed to be, and Omar is synonymous with, sticking up crews around the city. So Omar, you never came across the Barksdale project?
Well,
maybe I'm nitpicking. I'm just trying to,
No, I'm with you. That's the thing with season 1 for me. Like, I think it has a couple of those moments. Like, McNulty's the only person that knows Avon Barksdale, the drug kingpin. Greg's has Bubbles as a CI. The Barksdale name never came up. Like,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Zach, where are we going?
So then the next part is okay. So it continues off where the cops show up and they just knock on a random door. And Bodhi's like, that's the wrong door. We moved it last night. And, we cut back to McNulty at the office. But we see basically how inefficient and pointless this entire exercise is. It's just for appearances, right? It's just to tell them we did something when in reality they did nothing. And, Herc even says, like they found nothing. And Herc's like, well, you picked a random door. What are the odds they're going to find any drugs? And then Carver's like, the crew wants a tour to see what we found. And Greg's like, we didn't find shit. And it looks to Daniels, and he's clearly just pissed off because he knows that this whole thing was just for appearances. There was no point to any of this. But then there's the scene where Bodhi punches Polk in the face, and it's a great moment because then everyone starts beating on him, including what's it called?
Kima.
Kima. And it's a great moment too because what's it called? Kima, you think like she's gonna be the voice of reason. She runs over and she's gonna stop it. But then it shows that she actually joins in on the beating.
Well,
And it
you know,
shows like she's not susceptible to being a shitty cop at times also, you know.
well,
Just gonna be the
this is
moment.
just. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I felt like I cut you off a couple times today, Jack. I
Yeah,
apologize.
you're good.
So I feel like Kima. I actually think that it's more speaks more for her police. You know, you don't touch police officer. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so you know, as much as the Barksdales are in their gang, the police are in their gang. You don't touch.
Right.
You know, and this is it's something that's so true. At least back in the day, you don't touch an officer. You touch an officer, you getting fucked up. You know,
Right. It's like
I
five
think
different people beating on you.
I think times are a little different now with body cams and camera phones and everything. But no, Bodhi's getting beat down, and I don't think it's out of character for
No, I
Kima.
didn't say it was out of character. I was saying like it's more like what to me what it showed is that like she's not susceptible. She's not immune from, you know, because at the time we see her as like a great cop, but she's not immune from making mistakes. Also, you know what I mean? At
Yeah.
times she'll beat the shit out of some kid too, and it's like, you know, at the end of the day, they all have flaws. I like that it showed her doing that too, instead of like the cliche thing of her being like, "Hey guys, get off of this guy."
Yeah. I got a question though. Why did Bodhi punch him?
Yeah, that was a random. It was so stupid. I think.
Was it to distract them from maybe finding the right stash house? So they're focused on Bodhi instead of coming there to keep looking for the drugs that they came in for. Like why would he punch him? Why did he punch him?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they could have showed the cop roughing him up a little bit, right? And then Bodhi fighting back. I think that would have been a little bit more, you know, maybe the cop smacks him upside the head. But
He was
Bodhi
trying to
just
prove himself too.
I think too.
he sold it a bit, of course.
He
but,
did. In a
well-
later episode, he says to I think it's Carver when Carver has him in interrogation, and he's like, "Man, I'm 16. What the fuck they gonna do to me?" You know. So maybe it was like, "Well, shit, I'm only 16. You know, I'm just going to juvenile. I'm not going nowhere crazy or nowhere where I can't handle it." You know?
And also, Bodhi's also constantly trying to prove himself. That's why he's always yelling. He's constantly trying to be like showing everyone that he's a tough guy. You know, that's why like he has that talk with Stringer. He's constantly trying to assert himself. And it's also, for me, what I love is it's very satisfying seeing Polk get punched in the face because he's such he's such an obnoxious guy.
it just felt weird though. Oh, you guys line up. Bob,
Right in the face. Yeah. It reminded me of like, I don't know if you guys are baseball fans, but it reminded me of like when Don Zimmer fell down, like when like, just an old man just falling on the ground.
He took a hit. He definitely took a hit.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then Mahone just gives him like a drag of his cigarette when he's
on the that I love that part.
It's like, my job's done for the day, you know, because that's the last time he knows he'll probably ever do any real police
for sure
work. So we're just at the end, guys, and the last scene is them basically showing like this is what happened. And then the last scene is McNulty in his car drinking in the parking lot. Fitzhugh comes around, and it's funny because he pulls up on the wrong sides, like, "You were never on patrol," you know, establishing the relationship. And he basically is like, he reveals that Daniels had dirt on him. And then it kind of he drives away, and McNulty has that like almost that introspection of like, what did I get myself involved in? Like, who, you know what I mean? He starts to like question like, who is this guy? And it kind of just the show ends with him just lingering with that
kind
question.
of thinking. Yeah,
you know?
It's not like a. And what's so crazy about the ending of season of episode 2 versus episode 1? You remember how we were talking about the cliffhanger from episode 1 to episode 2? You know, like with the body of William Gant, and it leads into episode 2. The cliffhanger of Daniels being dirty I mean, I guess it's a cliffhanger, you know, but just for it to end so abruptly right there, it's like, oh shoot, okay, man, that's the end
Yeah,
of it. It's a different cliffhanger, like versus
right.
somebody getting killed. Like it's just the writing is just it's phenomenal. And I got a question.
It
He
was good.
said a couple 100,000 in assets. Daniel stole that much money, or like what?
I
What are
don't
they
know.
insinuating? Like he said he had a couple 100,000 in assets that a lieutenant should never have. So an asset could be your house, could be your car, and then they could see, you know, for to be able to draw that opinion. Liquid assets, a house, a car. So he's got a house and a car that he shouldn't have, or like because he said a couple 100,000. So maybe it's another property, maybe. Or but I'm like, okay, well, how much money did he steal then? Like was my question to equate to a couple 100,000 in assets. Like I was
Yeah.
just thinking about that. Like, you know, very
I don't know.
interesting, like number, I guess. And like, so how dirty was he that dirty? Or was it just something they put that number out there, 100,000, and maybe didn't think we would put the math together. I don't know. But
Yeah,
he said a couple 100,000 in assets. So
and the thing is, I don't think we ever find out, right? The
you
like,
Yeah,
know,
that's why I like it. It's interesting because it does the whole show. It leaves you like wondering, like, huh? I wonder. Like that's what I think that's one of those things where like it just leaves you wondering. Like there's everyone has fan theories about
mhm.
what Daniels did,
But he
and
acknowledged it too, though. He acknowledged it to his
yeah,
wife at the end of season 1, where they were talking about the case, and he was like, he knows about the money, Marla.
hmm
Like, you know, so like, damn, how much money did you take? You didn't take a couple $100,000, did you? Like, because that's crazy. That's
yeah.
felonious. That's a felony. Like, you
But
know,
it's great that it kept him dirty because he's like the last person he has like he comes off like a Boy Scout, so he's the
right?
last person you'd expect, which I think is a good choice. Like because it's like it'd almost make him more like he would be able to get away with it because he has this like good old boy mentality to him, you know. I've always wondered and like there's always what he did, and I find it interesting they never really dive into that,
It's just
you
if
know.
you give me numbers, I'm gonna try to start making the numbers make sense. So he said a couple 100,000. A couple is 2 or 3. So call it 300,000. You know. So okay. Well, what are the assets there? You know, kind of thing. That's kind of my thoughts. Like so.
all right. Is that it?
Yes, sir.
That's it.
All right,
Appreciate
man.
you, Jack, for sure.
Appreciate all you guys.
I appreciate the Leland and Jack do more of the behind the scenes work, so I appreciate them a lot. You know, I'm just a visionary that and you know, we're gonna bring you episode 3. Thank you to Lynn for coming on. We'll find some way to make it up for you because I do think that you contributed to the show the little bit that you were here. We appreciate you. Um, and I'm gonna reach out to some guest stars. I know my cousin is friends with Andre Royo, so I'm gonna look for him for an interview. Maybe reach out to Trey Shaney for an interview. So look for more things for us to come. You know, thank you guys for tuning in.
And Jesse,
Wire
you know what? Just before you peel off, Jesse, maybe we do have it separate from the breakdowns. Maybe the guest hosts and the interviewees. Maybe that's a whole separate portion of our pod, you know, kind of thing, versus the the episode to episode breakdown that we do. Maybe that's something the 3 of us can discuss off camera. You know, maybe that's how we can, bring people on and have people on, in terms of what we want to do. But definitely appreciate everybody tuning in for sure. Jesse, take us out, man.
gang.
See you next week.
All righty. Okay, y'all.
You're done?
Yeah, I'm done, baby. Y'all okay?
Yeah, we're about to pay.
All right, baby. All right, I'll see y'all soon. All right, ciao.